Here's the number one mistake that Tucson home buyers make right now, and it's costing them a lot of money, and sometimes it costs them the house. And it's confusing a pre-qualification with an actual pre-approval. Now, this might sound like a small thing. It might sound like the same thing, but these are two very different things. Let's break it down simple. A pre-qualification is essentially just a verbal conversation. A pre-approval is a full in-depth verification of several things about your loan. And loans really come down to a few things. We need to understand the income, not just how much you make, but how do you make it? Are you self-employed? Are you commissioned? Are you overtime? There are so many different rules and ways to calculate that income. In addition to that, we're going to look at your assets. You might have the money in the bank, but there's rules that bankers have to follow. We have to make sure that money was not laundered. We have to find the source that it came from. And these can create lots of questions, or without getting into this documentation, we might say, sounds good, and then the paperwork actually ends up not working out, and that's where you end up missing out on the house, or you end up costing yourself money because it takes additional time to get your transaction done. So simply put, don't go into life's biggest purchase just off a verbal conversation, even if you know you're good to go, meaning that you have a great credit score, a great job, you have zero concern about getting approved for your loan. Remember this, the sellers don't know you. So if all you have is a pre-qualification, it could end up costing you more at the negotiation table, or you could be somebody who loses out on the house to someone who's less qualified than you just because the paperwork shows that they're further ahead in the process. Now, these might sound like the same thing, but they are vastly different. Look, a pre-qualification is really just a conversation. And you might have every good intention when you disclose your income, your assets, and you might be 100% correct with what you made and what's in the bank. But the thing is, when you get fully pre-approved, all those documents are closely scrutinized. And the thing about lending is there's a lot of rules, and there's a lot of reasons behind the rules, but that's not what we're here for today. Let's just understand the rules. We have to look at your income in detail. We have to look at tips and overtime and commission, all different from hourly or salary. We have to look at your earning trend. We have to confirm that your employer does not have plans to promote, demote, or even sever your employment, which, crazy enough, I've seen when people have went through buying a house. And if you look at what we're going to put on the screen here, Arizona even goes into even more detail where we have what's called a pre-qualification worksheet. And that's why I think some people get confused when they hear the term pre-qualified. Because if you look at this worksheet, there's a questionnaire that goes into great detail. So even if you're somebody who has an 800 credit score, a perfect job, you've been there forever, but you don't have your ducks in a row, meaning that because you're not worried about getting approved, you haven't turned in your pay stubs or your bank statements. What's going to happen is when you go to make that offer, this seller is going to get this detailed overview about you from your lender, and it's going to say, all we've done is talk on the phone and we've pulled your credit, and that's it. And so when they see that pre-qualification, and again, you might have all the money in the bank for 50% down and a great job, and they compare you with the next person who might be a first-time home buyer, they've had 6 jobs in 2 years, and they're getting their down payment from family. So it might be arguably less qualified, but on paper, they look stronger because all their documentation is in, all their ducks are in a row. And on this document that you can see here, the lender's going to say yes to income, yes to pay stubs, yes to tax returns. And you would have been stronger, but because you weren't worried about it, you waited, and now you lost yourself the house. Or at the very least, you got into a negotiation with somebody and it drove the price up thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. So this is why you don't want to get confused with getting pre-qualified. And even if you don't have a second worry about the loan, do yourself the favor of getting the paperwork in, and that way you can be most strongly represented at the time of the offer. So let's look at a real life scenario, an example we see all the time. So the scenario A is someone who has had a pre-qualification conversation, they've had their credit pulled, they've talked about their income and their assets, but they just haven't turned it in yet. Maybe because they were just too busy, or maybe because they figured they didn't have to worry about it until they found the right house. I hear that often. And then the second scenario is a client that has all their documentation in, it's been reviewed by the underwriter, so it's been underwritten, and so they go in very confident. They're both offering the same price. In this example here, let's say they're both going to offer $450,000, but the person that has all their documentation in doesn't need the time to get documentation in. They also can negotiate closing faster. They could even negotiate releasing their loan contingency because there's nothing to be contingent upon. The loan's already been underwritten. And so instead of bidding and saying, okay, now this person's offering $450, I'll go $475, they can just offer the same price. And because of the confidence of having all their documentation saying yes, the confidence that the loan's already been approved, and the confidence that they're already guaranteed with the underwriting, it didn't cost them any more, and they won. And here's the other thing about this. Remember, this document, a lot of sellers or consumers, I should say, are not as familiar with this document because you only buy a couple houses in your lifetime. Maybe you don't buy all of them in Arizona. And this document's very unique to Arizona. But the local experts, the realtors, they all know. And they talk. They know when a form is accurately filled out. They know who is a good lender. And when you can put those two things together, when you're working with a local, reputable lender, and you've turned in all your documents and you have a full strength approval letter, that is how you drastically increase your odds of winning. And again, you can save yourself money because you don't have to negotiate with price now. You can negotiate based on certainty. So how do you actually put this into action? What's the path to move forward? Well, number one is first you're going to apply, and that is where you're going to speak to a local lender. Hopefully reach out to us if you're looking here in Tucson, Arizona. We're happy to help you. After you apply, we're going to pull your credit, and we're going to get a good idea of where you work, what you make, what you're looking to buy, what you're looking to spend, and then we'll start collecting documentation around that. So typically we're going to need something related to your income, your assets, pay, credit, anything like that. So we will give you a specific documentation request based on your unique scenario. And then at that point, once we review your documents, we are going to then talk about the best loan structure to make the strongest offer. Once we're all on the same page and all the documentation that you've applied, the documentation has been provided, and it's been underwritten against the best loan program, and now you're fully pre-approved, you'll get with your realtor and you'll make a solid offer. So if you're looking to buy in Oro Valley, Marana, Tucson, or Southern Arizona, reach out to us. We'd like to understand what are your unique goals and circumstances, where you want to live, monthly payment, purchase power, all of that. We will talk about your unique preferences and then help you turn that into a strong, guaranteed approval. And if you need help, we can also introduce you to the best local realtors that know how to negotiate a solid offer and save you money. We look forward to working with you and answering any of your questions and help you find your next home here in Southern Arizona.